A little more than a year ago, I made a video comparing the Volvo EX90 and the Kia EV9. At that point in time, I had only toured the EX90 on the exterior and on the interior and not driven it. Well, because at that point in time, nobody had. I'd also recently just been to the Norwegian launch of the EV9 and driven it briefly. But now, I've driven both. I've tested the EV9 several times over the past year, and I recently went to northern Sweden and drove the EX90 over a few days. This is why I want to revisit the Volvo EX90 versus the Kia EV9. Depending on the market, there will either be a small or a big price difference between these two cars. Because I have a global audience, I cannot always include the pricing of every country in the world. But if you look at my last EX90 versus EV9 video, the vast majority of viewers were either from the US or Norway. So those are the prices I'm going to talk about here. So for your specific country, please check out the online configurator. And I know even in Europe, pricing will actually differ vastly. The EV9 can be had in a lower spec rear-wheel drive version while the EX90 cannot, at least not in Norway or in the US. So we will be comparing specs as similar as possible, though getting them identical is not possible. So there will be some differences. In Norway, the base EV9 all-wheel drive starts from 840,000 kroners, while the base EX90 Twin starts at 900,000 kroners, a price difference of only 5,000 euros. When fully spec'd, with fully in quotes, they both top out at around 1,039,000 kroners for the EV9 all-wheel drive GT Line 6-seater and at 1,048,000 kroners for the EX90 Twin Ultra 6-seater. That is a price difference of less than 800 euros, which is negligible. Remember though, this is where the EV9 tops out, but the EX90 does not. The EX90 can be had in a performance version with over 500 horsepower and with an insane Bowers & Wilkins sound system that may just be one of the very best sound systems in any car, period. Adding these would not only be unfair, but also hike up the price a lot. But at least you do have the choice to make the EX90 even better if you want or can afford. In the US, a fully spec'd EV9 all-wheel drive GT Line, again with fully in quotes, is $79,350, and the EX90 Twin Ultra is $89,060, which is about $10,000 difference. A much bigger difference than in Norway. So please consider this when watching the rest of the video, and please let me know the price difference in your country. Commenting this down below will be helpful for anybody watching this video. So please comment country and then the price of a fully spec version of both. I really like the exterior of the EV9. It looks bold, distinct, unique, and futuristic. But from some angles, it does look a little like a minivan. But overall, it is very cool. The EX90, on the other hand, is restrained, elegant, and stylish. Out of the two, I prefer the EX90 because I think it captures perfectly the essence of what a luxurious SUV should look like. Like the XC90 before it, I think it will age gracefully over the next decade. In many ways, I like the EV9's interior. It feels high quality, has many buttons, and has good ergonomics. But at the same time, it's a strange place to spend time. First off, the screen and the dashboard controls are very far away, meaning you have to reach a lot. The seats are hard and uncomfortable, and the driving position is just weird. It kind of feels like driving a bus. You're hunched over with your arms and you sit up way too straight. I'm not a fan. The EX90, on the other hand, feels even more expensive, looks great, but lacks many of the physical buttons you'd find in the Kia. So it's not exactly great, but what is great are the seats, possibly the best out there. And also the driving position is very good. Despite lacking on functionality, the Volvo still wins the front cabin battle for me. On paper, the EV9 wins when it comes to outright cargo capacity, but make no mistake, both are very big cars and the Volvo is by no means small or tight. It still has a very usable third row and a lot of cargo capacity, but the EV9 just has more. This is where these cars differ the most. In isolation, the EV9 is okay. I mean, it's comfortable and quiet enough. And considering its size, it also handles quite well. But the steering is very weird, and it lacks the refinement and sophistication in its ride you'd expect at this price point. And did I mention the weird driving position? Yeah, it's just weird. I'll link my full review down below for a more in-depth explanation for those interested. The EX90 with its optional air suspension not only handles as good as the EV9, but its ride is superior. There are at least a few classes of separation when it comes to ride comfort and luxury between these two cars. The steering feels natural and all the inputs of controls are cohesive across the board. And did I mention the seats? They are so good. The cabin is also dead silent in the EX90. I drove it on 21-inch studded winter tires, and even at 120 kilometers an hour on bare asphalt, it was superbly quiet. Driving-wise, they are not even close. I haven't done a range test with the EX90 yet, but I have done multiple range tests with the EV9 and the EX90's cousin, the Polestar 3. The Polestar 3 has a smaller frontal area, but the same drivetrain, battery pack, and drag coefficient. The EX90's frontal area is around 4.5% bigger than the Polestar 3. So we can do some calculations there. So with the latest range test with the Polestar 3 long range dual motor performance done at -7 degrees Celsius under damp and snowy conditions, we had an average consumption of 31.3 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. That car was on 22-inch wheels. The EV9 GT line all-wheel drive is the last car I test drove and did a range test with, and that test was done under conditions where it was -1.5 degrees Celsius with damp and wet roads, and we had a consumption of 30.4 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. That test was done on 21-inch wheels. The Polestar was tested under colder and harder conditions than the EV9, so we can safely assume that under similar conditions, they probably would have gotten around the same consumption, or maybe the Polestar had gotten even lower. But for the sake of this comparison, let's just say they have the same consumption to be on the safe side. So let's apply the EX90's 4.5% bigger frontal area to the consumption. Again, this is not going to be 100% accurate, but it will give us a good idea. This means the EV9 with a consumption of 30.4 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers and its 96 kilowatt hour battery pack would manage 306 kilometers of range at 120 kilometers an hour or 75 miles an hour. The Volvo would in theory have a consumption of 31.8 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers and with its 107 kilowatt hour battery and manage 326 kilometers of range at 120 kilometers an hour or 75 miles an hour. And remember guys, this is done at 120 kilometers an hour, so at lower speeds, the difference is going to be even bigger in favor of the Volvo. For me, one of these cars is clearly better in just about every way compared to the other one. And when the price difference, at least in my market, is very small, it's a no-brainer. But of course, if the price difference is a lot bigger in your market, that will obviously make the choice harder or even different than mine. Last week, I got an email from Volvo that they now finally have gotten press cars here in Norway, so I'm just waiting for my time slot. So if you want to see this comparison video but with real cars, give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. I'm really trying to hit 75,000 subscribers this year, so I would really appreciate your help. It helps out the channel immensely. It's completely free for you and it takes about a second. So guys, let me know which car you would choose down below and what's the price difference in between these two cars when they are similar spec in your country. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please drop me a thumbs up down below, and for more car content, as always, please subscribe. See you guys later and goodbye.